Hello and welcome back to OT, the podcast. We're here to talk about watches, time, how to spend it. I'm Andy Green.
I'm Felix Schultz. How you doing, Andy? What's happening?
I'm feeling a little bit hot and spicy, Felix.
Ooh, really? Have you been having some ghost peppers with your Wheaties?
Some Carolina Reapers burning up, to quote the Jonas Brothers.
Sure.
This week is a hot takes episode. We haven't done one in probably 6 or 7 months.
Sure, you could be right.
A lot of pent-up frustration.
Yeah.
A lot of spicy takes to get off our mind.
Not just our spicy takes, Andy. For people who are new here, we have a Discord, which is, a fun place to hang out. You should all join it, link in show notes, all that. And we have a dedicated channel for hot takes.
Mm-hmm. It's probably the most active channel in the Discord.
One of the most active. There's also an aeroplane channel that gets a lot of...
Yeah, there's airplanes, there's good decisions, which is where we basically all just enable each other and whatever watch you post and say, I'm thinking about buying this, pretty much everyone.
We'll validate.
Yeah, it's validating every single
Yeah.
purchase, even outside of watches. It doesn't have to be watches.
Sure.
If you're on the fence and you need that validation.
There's some private white validation recently, I think.
It doesn't matter what it is. If you need validation on a purchase, join our Discord and you'll find it there.
We're not financial advisors. We should say that at the top.
No, well, it's probably some in the Discord, but
Sure.
We've got a list of half a dozen or so hot takes to get through. But before that, Felix, things that you've been up to, anything of note?
Put me on the spot. Look, Is It Cake is back.
Oh, great.
That's pretty great. I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking a lot. Maybe it's just in the last 24 hours since we did the prep for this episode. I've just been thinking more about Dune. Mm-hmm. Have you seen it yet? One or two?
I still haven't seen number 1 or number 2.
It's good. Watch it. I don't watch it on the plain screen as God intended.
That's where I should watch. Okay, well, I've been watching a show that has a fair bit of watches woven into the storyline.
What are we talking about?
The Walking Dead. My first run through it.
Hang on. We're talking about The Walking Dead as in the 2012 AMC show production?
Probably earlier. I think 2008, 2009 maybe.
No.
Yeah. There was like 12 seasons and then all the spin-offs. So I think it's probably 2008, 2009.
Hashtag no spoilers.
Yeah. I'm going through it at a rapid pace. It's sort of all I think about and all I want to do with my spare time.
Do you think about the music that...
Yeah, I'm consumed. I'm absolutely consumed. And if you've watched it, it's one of those shows where they get you in, things start to turn around for the gang, and then all of a sudden you're reminded that no, there's an apocalypse happening and zombies everywhere, and yeah, you can never get too comfortable. And then the people that they build you up to really, really love and enjoy.
Where are you at in the narrative at the moment? What's happening?
I think I'm just at the start of season 7, which is pretty controversial. Look, I've been at it for at least a month and a half now, so
You've made it further than I've ever made it, I think.
I know a lot of people dropped out around that point because of something that happened, and they made it really, really hard to watch. And so I've surpassed that point, and I was sitting there, and yeah, again, if you're a Walking Dead fan, you'll know. I was sitting there just so angry, thinking to myself, do I skip ahead to when they get their inevitable revenge? And I said, no, Andy, just wait, go through the process, see how this plays out. It's Negan, yeah. So
I never made it to Negan.
Oh, I was sitting there going, am I going to skip through this just to I need this revenge right now? Like, how could you do this?
Sure.
But anyway, like if you've watched it, there's quite a few, watches. There's a pocket watch. There's Herschel's pocket watch, which famously gets passed around from the various characters, and it's quite important. Rick, arguably the main character, his wristwatch is it kind of comes in and out as well. He kind of gives it to someone and it makes its way back to him. And there's like a bit of maybe around like season 3 or 4, there's like a watch exchange between him and Carol, another one of the lead characters.
The OGs. Yeah,
and it sort of brings up the whole, does time really matter and what they sort of use the watches for? And it's like, if I'm not back in 45 minutes, go on without me vibes. But in a world where, everything's gone horrible, do we even need watches? What were the watches even for? if not to track, supply runs.
These are the deep questions.
Yeah,
that's great.
But I'm so obsessed. I'm at the point where I'm like, if it was at the time and there was all that sort of madness happening, like, I don't know, meet and greets or merchandise or anything like that, I think I'd be there. I'd be on it.
I read the comics before. I got into the comics like a year or two before the series was announced, which was great. That is the best time to be.
Yeah. Because you can still tell people that, you knew it before it would.
Well, yeah, and also you've got this thing to look sort of forward to. So yeah, I'm very excited for you.
The other thing I mentioned to you, which you found interesting. So Luna, my little dog, obsessed as well with me. Every single night when I'm watching it, she sits and she just avidly watches,
actively stares at the screen.
Loves it. I think she likes the zombie sounds or something, which is a little concerning, but she's just is into it. And it's one of the first shows that I've watched where I give complete attention to in a long time. Yeah.
Here's a question for you: if you had to pair up with someone in, Rick and Michonne is the current sort of product that is being promoted, who would be your go-to?
Carol.
Sure.
So, yeah, she comes in and saves the day at least 3 times so far.
Unflappable.
She's a weapon. Rick's good, but makes some interesting choices. Michonne's as well, also lethal.
Not Carol, sexy Daryl.
Daryl's, it's Daryl or Carol, and that's why they're sort of they have their thing, going through, or little Carl, because he seems to fail upwards a bit as well.
Speaking of failing upwards, Andy, I think this is a great time to get to some of the spicier content. Again, pulled it from the Discord. Some of this may be our opinions. Some of it may be, member of the Discord opinion. We will, we will not disclose to protect the anonymity because some of these are potentially, bannable offences.
Yep. Also, we stole their ideas, so.
Yeah, look, shout out to a few people. Everyone there knows who they are. If anyone joins, you can scroll back and find out who said what.
What was the first hot take?
How do you want to do with it? Do you want me to pick one out of the hat and we'll chat about it, or do you want to, go first?
Let's just run through them in order. So I can open the first one. If Tudor dropped the snowflake hands, they would see a noticeable uptick in sales. Obviously, we've seen the new Black Bait Chrono come out pretty recently with the pink dial for the Inter Miami kind of partnership, and that's brought attention back to those snowflake hands, which kind of cover up the dial or the sub dials. I think it's about the sub dials. So that's sort of a specific example. My view on this is that I don't think it would, and as I responded to this comment in the Discord, I said the snowflake hands really are kind of important to Tudor as far as breaking away from Rolex and using Rolex parts, and so kind of lollipop hands, Tudor, the snowflake hands, really that's one of their markers as they moved away from literally having, Rolex crowns and case backs and branding. So I think it's pretty important.
Just as a design separator between the two companies and the two product offerings.
Since like this late 60s as well. So it's, 50, 60-year-old design cue that I think belongs there. Does it belong on a chronograph? Is it in the way? I mean, the alternative was the Mercedes hands, but I'll bring that back and use that instead. You're talking like a millimeters of, surface area and visibility. And again, no one's using their chronographs to time anything anyway. So I don't know if that's true. I don't agree with this take. Do you?
They're not great necessarily. Ooh. Like as far as hand design goes, they're idiosyncratic. And in a very specific purpose. On a dive watch, you can tell the two apart. Yeah, it does the job. The Black Bay is not that anymore. The Black Bay is, like it's a Royal Oak, it's a Speedmaster, it's an entire identity in and of itself.
Sure.
Does that make them? Yeah. Look. So I'm going to take it back to the hot take. It's not saying if it's good or bad. It's saying if they dropped it, it will be a noticeable uptick in sales. I think that's right. I think it's a polarizing design decision. Like if you're a noob looking at a watch, you want something that looks like a sub, you want a dive watch, that's fine. You're going to get a Black Bay. You look at the hands like, oh, that's a bit weird. especially now that we're not so frothing for, sort of retro nostalgia vibes.
Do you think that's how someone fresh off the street walks in and sees it? They go, "Oh, those hands look they look weird."
Like if I want a sub, I've gone into the Hourglass here and they sell both. I'm like, I want a sub. And you can't get a sub. I'm like, but you can get this Tudor. It's made by the same. They do the whole spiel. It's made by the same company, the same quality. Blah 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 blah. It doesn't look like it. I understand why Tudor do it, but I reckon they would probably sell more if they made it look more conventional.
Well, here's a splinter thought to throw back at you.
A fraction.
Here's a fraction take. I don't think that chronograph watches and dive watches should mix. Doesn't make sense
100%.
to me. Doesn't make sense. You're not unscrewing it. You're not doing it. No. That's why dive watches have bezels.
Yep.
And it's simple and it's tried and tested. Okay. So I don't think that chronograph and dive watches really should be the same, which is what the Black Bay is sort of started out as, dive watches. And I think this is where maybe it got muddied because
it's also like dress every day. Like there
is, right?
Yeah.
And so, but I think people take Black Bay to be just dive watches, and maybe even Tudor for a little while believed that. And so that's why they kept that snowflake hand into the Black Bay chronograph, because it was like, we've got this really successful and amazing, watch family. Like, let's build it out into this whole collection with other stuff. But really, a Rolex Daytona doesn't have, Mercedes hands. It's just got little pointy hands, little stick hands, perfect for the function. And they're sort of very separate. And so I think the snowflake hands doesn't belong on the chronograph.
Or a dress watch.
Sure. But it makes sense on the other watches in the collection. And I just think people as consumers, and that's everyone's fault, but maybe they think that the Black Bay is a dive watch. And part of it is the name. Like, Black Bay does sound kind of nautical.
Sure.
And it came out as the model name. Like, it was just the Black Bay, and then it became the Black Bay,
chronograph, the Black Bay.
Or 36, which is an entirely different looking watch than the Black Bay. But I think, maybe it's a naming issue.
I think there's a lot there. But for me, I understand, again, why they do it. It makes sense. You got to differentiate. You got to do all that stuff. I think if they did something that looked more vanilla, they might sell more.
And also, I think they sell heaps of them. So
yeah, it's kind of I mean, it's splitting hairs.
Yeah, you are. Next take is one. I mean, it's sort of, again, it's a two-parter. It's something that's been agitating us both for some time.
Well,
the
second part has been agitating me. The first half,
it's a zipper in the washing machine that you can you hear it going around.
Some loose change.
Yeah, you hear it going around, but you're not getting up to stop it and take it out. You're letting
my phone.
Yeah, no, it's not your phone. It's just that tinking sound. But Cartier is and always was cool. It always has been. But at the moment, this is a trend, and we'll be on the other side of it before long. Right. What are they saying here, Felix? Break this down for me.
Cartier is white hot. Well, so start of the year, Morgan Stanley released their big sort of report of the watch industry last year.
Yep.
This was one of the big takeaways for me. 4 brands by revenue comprise just over 50% of Swiss watch sales. Rolex, Omega, Patek, Cartier. Cartier is a hot brand. It's a big brand. But more than that, at the moment, it is hot with collectors.
Sure.
Because they've been doing cool things like their new sort of Privé line. They've got their sort of regional special editions. They've done really, really smart things from top to bottom.
Yep.
And people are responding to that. So that's what the brand's doing. They've got some real hot strategy going on. Industry-wide, we've had a moment where we're like, maybe sports watches aren't all that. What do we got that's cool and has credibility and is legit and maybe undervalued that isn't a sports watch? And Cartier is the obvious pick. And people have been flocking to it. And on the other side of that roller coaster comes a little dip.
Yeah, what goes up must come down. But yeah, you're spot on. I mean, Cartier has always been cool. They've been so influential as far as watchmaking design. We could talk about them, and we will talk about them for hours and hours and hours on end. That this newfound appreciation where people are realizing, oh shit, Cartier is very, very cool and they're great quality and they've got this amazing, pedigree to them. Oh, maybe I'll look at these instead of those other brands. Yeah, that part of the trend will move on. The thing I think is quite interesting is is that they've really, it's a result of amazing marketing and a result of amazing branding and just building, a fantastic product and a fantastic brand over a really long time.
Yeah.
Is that, when, people do appreciate it. And I think Cartier have really capitalized, or I don't think that they've deliberately capitalized, I think it's the wrong word, but they've really benefited from the shift towards dressy watches, which we've sort of now.
So right place, right time for them.
And that could be the trend that moves on, right? And there's other points, other takes that we've got. But maybe that when the dress watch thing cools off, that's when, that part cools off for them. But the follow-up point was, and we've, again...
Oh, no. Before we get to that follow-up point, I've got a question for you around this sort of the explosion of Cartier. Do you think that Cartier would be in this sort of real hot position without the recent extreme interest in the crash? Like that was what was once an obscure sort of cult model, always a bit of an oddity, always really respected by collectors and always had a high price, that just got blown up, since the Kardashians, and it, became a legit celeb watch.
I think.
And has now created, I suspect, a lot of problems.
I don't think it's the crash, but I think it is the celeb portion. They have just, it became the hot one. And everyone knows, right? The celebs do it and then everyone else falls into line, the Bangnoir and, the Santos. Every Cartier basically has just appeared and it's getting photographed and posted, and it's just become really, really hot to have.
I see, I'm pushing an agenda here, perhaps unsurprisingly. I don't think it would have been quite as fast or as intense without that sort of marketing headline of this crash sold for 1.5 million, this one sold, it's that halo piece that everything else benefits from. Yeah. And without that, it would have been, Cartier, a great brand, they make great watches, buy a tank, buy, Bangnoir, buy whatever it is.
Yeah, but who was those big names initially wearing the crap? Wasn't it Tyler, the Creator?
Tyler, the Creator was pretty early.
Big, but name one of his songs. Do you know what I mean? We know who he is because
I also can't name a John Mayer song, but that's not John Mayer's fault. No,
but you probably could. But is Tyler, the Creator, the trendsetter for luxury watches? But hype like streetwear, definitely for streetwear. But I don't think he's the guy that the watch enthusiasts and the people that have sent this going crazy. I think he set other celebrities onto it. And then
but he's been advised. So whoever does Tyler, the Creator's buying, he's bought it from, Eric Wind, and Eric Wind's gone.
Eric Wind's probably the guy then. It's, you know what I mean? Blame Eric Wind then. Because I
blame all the Erics. Eric Koo.
Yeah, seriously, those that I would put more on them, because they opened up the world of you can special order this, and didn't even know this existed. Sure. And then they've invested in showing this stuff off and buying this kind of crazy stuff that maybe people weren't buying and publicly showing before. So
yeah,
I don't know. The next point we have here is that TikTok watch talk is slowly ruining or eroding my love for Cartier. I don't know who said that.
Who could have said that, Andy?
But I feel for them.
You understand their position?
I understand their position. My love for Cartier is as strong as ever now. I saw there's an old dude at this cafe. I was in a cafe on the weekend, and this old guy kind of walked in. He must be in late 70s. Santos on a bracelet, and it just looked so good. It was just a classy, lovely retirement. I'm assuming he's retired. He looked like he could have retired probably a couple of decades earlier.
Sure. He's probably on a couple of boards.
He's probably got
little advisory things.
Some strategic advisory stuff going on.
Sure.
Yeah, I get it though. I get the watch talk in general. It eats me up inside because so much of it is kind of nonsense and not great, or not what I want out of watch content anyway.
No, it's rapidly moved to a point that I had a thing like, I was speaking to, for another project, I had a chat to John Buckley a little while ago. There's very, very little of substance there. And I understand it's not necessarily for me. You know, maybe it's for people earlier on in their educational journey, and maybe there's people still excited by it. But so much of it, the naked agenda is just so clear.
Yes.
Anyway,
I think it's shown this sort of, and it's sort of trying to normalize the ugly side of watches as well, the buying and selling and the sort of stuff that was previously behind the scenes. And I don't know, I just wouldn't feel great if I saw the dealer I bought a watch from 2 hours earlier buy it for $2,000 less, haggle and haggle and haggle and get a great price for themselves. And then when it comes to me buying it, they charge, you know, an absolute premium and have zero movement. And I buy it because they've got that, you know, watch dealer celebrity that's now a thing. And then seeing it play back and going, oh, they made.
Look, I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily ugly. I think that's a really good side. Like to understand what the margins are, to understand, you know, how that process works. I think is really, really valuable. Like these guys aren't just necessarily, you know, finding the watches, ferreting them out of barns. They've got, you know, extensive networks that they can call on. For me, it's not so much that process, which I actually find the most fascinating out of it. It's the unending focus on investment and on return on investment and I'm sounding really old and grumpy as per usual. It's a watch, wear it, buy it. Don't worry about how much it's appreciating or depreciating it, because if you need to worry about that, you shouldn't be buying the watch.
Well, that's why the focus on dealers, I think, is not great, because for the dealers, it's making money. But for you take that watch back to them, you're going to lose money. You try and sell it privately, you're going to have a hard time. You're going to end up going back to them or someone else. You're going to lose money.
And this is another thing about that Cartier thing, specifically for that. Like, it's not an established market, and it's been too short a time to be able to have that quick turnover. You're going to lose money in the long run unless you have one of 5, you know, models.
Well, this is the next point, which I think I made this point, which was quirky dial plus precious metal plus 70s, 80s vintage phase. It won't last long, and a lot of people are spending really big money, and they're going to struggle to sell their, you know, $30,000 US dress watch. And this is because I get asked this probably the most. People will send me, and there's a couple that send me a lot of them, but I'll get, you know, forwarded some amazing photos from someone, a watch account I've not heard of, or a deal I've not heard of, in Europe, because that's the other thing. There's so many popped up, and it will be a not quite square, not quite circle case in gold with a cool stone dial, maybe some diamonds on there,
on the case,
maybe a solid metal bracelet that you have to cut to size.
Sure.
Oh, how much? Oh, it's $20,000 US, $30,000 US. Okay. Great. It's at the point where there's no reference for it, or there's half a dozen examples on Chrono24. They're all expensive, but what are they transacting for? Yep. And just because you pay that doesn't mean you're going to be able to find someone else to pay it. When this sort of trend around those sort of 3 key criteria goes, who are you going to sell it to? Because those watches were always sitting around. They were all sort of 8 to 10 grand, and all of a sudden they're tripled in price. But what's going to be...
The Rolex Midas is a great example, just to sort of call it out. Like, it's probably one of the more saleable ones because it's got the Rolex name attached to it.
Yep. And it's been, I think, more of a gradual grow in interest and price point. But when there's stuff where you couldn't even name the model, and from Patek to Piaget to AP.
And they're using those real sketchy, like thin sort of at the end of the Swiss watch crisis mechanical movements that are like you breathe on it wrong and it needs to be replaced.
Yep. They were just produced in really small quantities. It'd be a nightmare to service. No one just knows anything about them because they've never been sort of interesting or cool. Yep. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference between like the stuff that Alfredo Paramico sells, you know, the guy collects, you know, early Blancpain or early Daniel Roth timepieces, or, you know, Gerald Genta when he started his own brand. Like that stuff I get. But this other sort of dress, like, I don't know. I feel bad for the people that buy into it because there's half a dozen people on TikTok and Instagram that just love it and do it, and they sort of join it and they can't get out.
The other thing about Paramico is a great example because he's someone that can afford to buy it. Money doesn't probably matter too much. I'm going to make some assumptions. He's buying it because he's buying tip-top condition, you know, the very, very best, and he's buying it because it's that sort of particular, collector urge to catalog something, that's not the benchmark.
We probably also bought all of them as well, so he'll control it, and he knows. I mean, he at one point had a watch investment fund of some sort.
Yeah, I think that's still there's still a few of those floating around.
I think legally that had issues as far as regulation issues, but he is probably the one person I would say can invest in watches and knows what he's doing. But yeah, I don't know. I think
all the auction
buying
houses
at the peak is never good for anything because the houses, cars.
The caveat there is unless you absolutely love it, you have no intention of selling it, it's not going to do you any damage to spend that premium on it. That's fine. If you love it, love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
but it's not going to be cool forever.
No, don't speculate on this stuff. If you're absolutely obsessed, you go, there's not another one out here. I've got to have it. That's it. That's why you buy it. But if you're going, this could be a great purchase, it's probably not.
And I mean, look, and the other thing is that I'm obviously my own particular sort of interests aren't at your, gold Patek weird 70s end of the spectrum, but I think too something like the you remember the story of Felix's Eternomatic Contiki 1000?
Yeah.
Which is the watch with the flippy uppy. I've got a weird thing for like cases that do stupid things. It's a stupid watch from 2008. I've never bought it because it's a stupid watch. And it's gone up consistently, it was maybe a $3,000-$4,000 watch then. Now it's probably a $6,000 or $7,000 watch. Just because time is moving on and
that's a separate thing. There is the stuff that just with time.
And the other thing is it's rare enough that it's going to go up because if someone wants it, they're going to spend what they want on it.
And that's a full set Rolex Midas for some of this other stuff. And I think that's the flip side.
Let's
move on.
Let's take it a little bit lighter now to one of the – it's not quite date windows or not date windows, but it's close. 60-click bezel is better than 120. 120 is too many clicks.
Too many dang clicks. This is such a nerdy take. I love it.
Hang on, we've got a bezel. Oh, hang on. Here we go. Let's get some audio ASMR. This is
120 or 60?
Zodiac? Well, you tell me.
So I can't count. It sounds like maybe 120.
It's 120.
It's 120?
Yeah,
too many clicks. Too many clicks. But you get more precision with the alignment as well, which is something that always bugged me.
Yeah. I think for a bidirectional, I can't believe I've got a take on this, bidirectional or non-diving bezel or nothing that really, like, if you're timing to the hour, 60 is fine. Yeah.
Which is better? That's the original take, though. What's better?
Look, I think 120, yeah.
You can always go faster on a 120. Yep. Anyway, this is too nerdy.
But also great.
Speaking of other hot takes, though, someone's got a feeling around Omega. They're seeing a lot of articles this award season on who's wearing what on their wrist. There's a hell of a lot of Omega getting featured. Guessing they've gone big on the quote-unquote ambassadors / friends of the brand. Omegas, I mean, they've always been everywhere. Was it Clooney? It was Clooney for a long time as an ambassador.
Yeah, well, probably still is.
It probably still is, right? And when they got him, biggest actor on
Sidney Crawford, all the Bonds, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate marketing play. And I want to come back to Bond when we wrap this. But they've sort of one of the biggest marketing budgets, I would think, in the watch industry.
Sure. Well, I mean, if we can go back to that point about the biggest, I would also say that the other brands you see a lot of on those red carpets is Cartier. You see a whole lot of Cartier.
A whole lot of Richemont. Like, they clearly work. They've got good relationships with the stylists.
Yep, stylists, and they spend money, and they've got their Hollywood insertion department. But yes, I haven't seen. I mean, my take on that is I haven't seen much Omega content outside of that traditional advertising billboards, aside from the wrist spotting stuff. Like, it's a new release.
Maybe they've gone back to basics.
I mean, yeah. What do you think? What's your take on this bit of spice? Can we? Oh, now we've got an editor. We need like a little spice meter. And we get like Guy Fieri's head exploding or something.
Maybe we can use the levels at which we speak to determine the hot takes. I don't know if Steve's going to be able to tell.
Felix, we'll hook ourselves up with like heart rate monitors.
Yeah. Pulse. We get pulsometer or something, and just kind of see how it goes. EKG.
None of this will happen.
No, probably not. I don't really have a take on this. I don't know. I think
as it was, so it shall always be.
The swing back to big watches is inevitable.
Yes.
Is this you?
No.
It feels like something you'd say. Really?
Yes.
Are we there already, are we?
I made a comment to someone. We're seeing a proliferation of expensive independent watches.
That's true.
Fleming, Shapiro, Beaver, all the LV Group brand, revivals. For me, it's giving pre-GFC, where you had like Cabistan and I don't know, all those sort of all the guys that like just chucking tourbillons in things and charging a ridiculous price on a brand that had no sort of basis in no history or no pedigree except for the the one very talented guy masterminding it or whatever it was, and that was also the era of big watches.
Yeah, so you might be right here.
Sorry,
you might be right here. I think that when you point out the independents, and they always are bigger because those guys struggle and have their own challenges, I should say, with new movements and cases and sort of. That is always the trade-off with a cool independent brand. It's always bigger than you want it to be, whether it's Sapaneva, MBNF, Jane Sapira.
They're 45.
Yeah, Lambden. They all seem to be big, and size seems to be like the last consideration. Maybe Akrivia is the only exception. I think those are like 39.
Look, there are 39s. There are a lot of 39s out there, but if you put complications in there and, you knew to,
Yeah, even Roger Smith, that's, they're bigger. They're 39, 40 mil watches. It's sort of the half of the course.
I think, so yeah, that's where I come from the swing to big watches. That's one example, and I think we'll see this macro trend. It's also really important to note that big watches never went away.
They didn't.
Different markets, different places, different audiences, they'll still love them. I think the trend for small will, like small gold 36 millimeter dress watches, they'll always have a place, but the fashion for them will go back and forth. I think we will see, return to big watches, 43 millimeters will not be anathema at some point. Panerai will become cool again, but it'll be a more nuanced take. Like I would hope that maybe we're at a point, or maybe the people, you and I will be like, wear whatever you want, whatever size was happy. But, Felix minus 15 years will be going, no, it's got to be 45 or nothing. I don't know.
I think what I'm getting from this is we're due for a change in tastes. This is to summarize all of these takes, we're due for a trend shift. It's about to happen. It's probably going to happen. A revolution. It's going to happen at Watches and Wonders with whatever the brands push on us is going to be the new trend. I think we leave this last take on our list for our Discord because of an interview I have coming up, and it's a question I want to it's a topic I want to bring up.
You're already bowing to corporate pressure.
I want to ask the horse this question. And so I don't want to get into it between us when I can get into it with them, and you better believe I'm going to. It's
I got one for you.
Let's just say it rhymes with schmockdo schmishmaro.
I'm going to pivot around this. Did you read Chris Hall's newsletter?
I always read Chris Hall's newsletter.
Did you really, Andy?
Mm-hmm. Pretend I didn't though.
He was talking about the lost art of the brand. Like his premise was, is there a point interviewing for watch journalists to interview brand CEOs? And he was like,
Gosh.
they don't say anything. And he said he's sort of, maybe slightly hyperbolic take was like, why bother if they're never going to say anything?
Not always true. We've done our share, and we've had ones that have said things.
Name 3 brand CEOs that have said something off script or given genuine insight that isn't. They're very good at reciting the script.
Chris Granger, I reckon he dances the line well, but he did. I mean, he kind of told us that the engineer was happening 2 years before it happened.
He was told everyone that.
But he's pretty good.
I'm talking major corporates here. Indies don't count, and
Indies don't count. Who else? I mean, Biver was a bit.
Doesn't count.
Why doesn't he count? We had him on. He was all kinds of wild to you.
Yeah, because he's not
himself.
representing shareholders.
Who else? Who else is good? Yeah, look, maybe.
Yeah, and the thing, and the other sort of thing that Chris Hall was saying was that no one asks questions. Like, they don't.
People are very.
For me, that's the hard thing. Like, because if you're not aware of it, you're intensely aware of it. You have to pre-submit questions often. You say, "What are you going to ask?" Which makes sense. They want to research it. They want to know what you're going to ask. They want to know if you're, where you're coming from.
Yeah, so they can be prepared.
But also, they can sort of maybe say, "Oh, maybe don't speak about the financial climate in this particular or whatever it is." I mean, that's what PR do. And it's a very, very small number of journalists that can do whatever, that don't do that, or that can not do that and still get access and get good results. And that's an experience thing.
Yeah, okay. I see the point here. I think that they're still good for insights and getting, if you have the right questions, you can learn things outside of the press release. They're obviously not going to tell you things that are secret or that might put them in a bad light.
They'll never talk about their competitors, for example.
Yeah. We've had some that do. We definitely have, but they won't talk about anything that's negative or that puts them in a bad light.
Sure.
That I understand. My counter take here, which I think is a better take, watch ambassadors. So ambassadors for watch brands, I should say, are useless, nearly useless for talking about watches. They're great to have as guests to talk about sort of other things, and that's probably why we do it.
Yep.
But it is their absolute job to tell you how much they love the brand and the watches. And of course, you're going to get the same.
And honestly, my take on that is you shouldn't, as a journalist, you don't ask them about the watches. You ask them about what their life is and why it's awesome and amazing. And then you throw one question in there about how does time matter to you as a surfer, Kelly Slater, or whatever it is. And that's the tie-in.
Yeah. And we've had more than our share of ambassadors on and friends of the brand. And that's sort of what we aim to do, because of course they're going to say, I love it. The brand's great. I love this watch so much that they've given me and they pay me a ridiculous amount of money to wear. Can you believe I get paid to wear a $50,000 watch? So of course.
Even, I kind of don't like that take. Like, it's a real sort of watch nerd forum take of ambassadors are useless. And no, they're not. They're not selling to you because you already know the entire catalogue of the brand.
I think we're
selling to someone else.
I mean, David Beckham, I'd say, is probably the greatest brand ambassador of all time for watches. He's just what he's been able to do working with Tudor, and I think that's one of the most genius plays of the last 10-ish years. I think they've got a place, and everyone sort of now knows him for Tudor, and he does seem to like watches. I think you'd be able to talk to him about watches, but I think for every David Beckham, there's 9 others that you'd struggle to talk to him about watches. Like Leonardo. Yeah. Can you imagine talking to Leonardo about?
No, but you wouldn't. I mean,
you wouldn't, and you wouldn't use the opportunity. But could you imagine how hard that would be? Or even Brad Pitt and Breitling. I think he'd struggle a bit, but
Yeah. Anyway,
I want to.
That's not their job. Their job is not to.
Hey, so we mentioned Bond before, Felix. I want to give a special shout out to Pete, Not So Obvious Watches, in our Discord. He did a video recently around yes, of course, about what watch would James Bond wear in 2024. He
also did one recently about ambassadors. So I mean,
he's His channel's growing. His videos are pulling views, and this one pulled like 160 comments when I looked at it. A lot of interesting takes. We sort of had this mini discussion in our Discord. Would he wear a Rolex like sort of Ian Fleming intended at the time, and wrote it to be before Omega and Biver, who we just mentioned, really hijacked the narrative. Would he wear a Rolex? A lot of people saying G-Shock. It wouldn't be a smartwatch because he's out in the middle of nowhere for a long time and couldn't charge it. Would it be a G-Shock? Would it be a Black Bay? Would it be a Speedy?
Why does James Bond have such a chokehold on people?
Because he's the ultimate. Well, he's chokehold on men because he's the ultimate. He's the ultimate
what we've
man.
been told that a man is.
Yeah,
God, it's wild. It's.
I don't think he'd be wearing Rolex because I just don't think he'd have the time or the inclination to do the whole waitlist thing, and also probably couldn't afford them in today's climate.
Get a squad. No, he'd probably have he'd have an old Squadron watch.
Could you imagine? He'd be out running down the street trying to do something, and they'd be like, "Oh man, nice Pepsi. Where'd you get it? Which dealer sold?" He'd just get interrupted all day long if you were responsible.
TikTokers. Who are you? What do you do for a living? Bond, James Bond.
Mind if I see your apartment? Yeah. Trying to be undercover, and he's got a.
There's dystopian social media content.
Got another hot take. Can't wait to see what comes out at Watches and Wonders. Of course, this will be airing the day before I fly out.
Yeah, this Friday coming up.
It's Friday. I'm leaving to Watches and Wonders tomorrow. Can't wait.
Hey, safe travels, Andy. What are you going to watch on the plane? Gentlemen, you going to watch The Gentleman?
Don't know yet. I'm going to see
it's pretty. I watched it. It's pretty light and popcorny.
I like to watch horror films when I fly, so yeah, keep it grim.
Cool.
Keep it grim.
Let's bring this home, Andy. What are we going to do at the end of the episode?
Alrighty. Well, we've mentioned our Discord half a dozen times. We have a Substack which Felix is overdue to write something for, so we'll link that up.
So many deadlines.
Paulin, I think you've got a Paulin that you have to write up. Of course, ot.podcast on Instagram. Make sure you're subscribing on our YouTube channel and sharing it with your friends. Leave a comment if you have your own spicy hot take. But yeah, if you like the podcast, then tell people about it. That's all we can ask.
Yeah. I got nothing, mate.
Well, I'll be back during Watches and Wonders / straight after. Got a whole bunch of fun stuff planned there. Interviews, a couple of factory tours or manufacturer tours as they're called. Can't wait.
Hope you don't run into any TikTokers.
And I'll be dodging them. Can't wait. I can't wait. See you then.
That's bad.